crisis, there's no excuse. You've been loosed.
This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I'm the host on our podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Guys, let's keep going. We're going to dive in. I want to take advantage of our time. You know how we do things over here. We dissect everything. We want to first acknowledge our flag that represents our nation and the citizens thereof in those 50 states. Always praying for our president, his family, the cabinet, whoever the president is. We want to pray for all leaders. That's what, as believers, we are instructed to pray for leadership, the ones that are in the White House. Even if they're doing the wrong thing, I pray that my prayer is that they will do the right thing, okay? And then there needs to be accountability as well. So we want our country to do well. I want our posterity to do well. I want our nation to do well. I want our children to do well. There's a lot on the line. So we're going to keep dissecting things. That's what we do in our community over here. We know who's the leader of our country. We know who wants to be the leader of our country. And tonight, there's a lot on the line. And so we're going to examine something that has generated a lot of discussion in our nation. Overcoming the obstacles. Overcoming the obstacle in our clinical perspective is making tough decisions. There are a lot of obstacles that our country's dealing with. There are a lot of obstacles that get presented to us, and we have to decide, what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with it? I remember when Biden was in there, I would just see, he just kind of sit there kind of like lost, remember? Shaking hands with the air and that kind of thing. And it's just like, we just wouldn't even see him for long, extended periods of time. And it was like, well, what's being done about this, that, and the other? That's when illegal immigrants, we would just see them coming, rushing across the border. It's like, Lord have mercy, what in the world is going on? What's going on? And so when you have to make tough decisions, President Trump walked into a mess with what was going on with the illegal immigration. And men being in the showers with our women in the military. There was a lot going on. And he made some tough decisions with executive orders, and it has tripped a lot of people out. But you know what? He doesn't care about people being tripped out. He just had to go in there and put some things in order, and they would want to present it like he's just out of control. He just came in. He's a dictator. I tell you what, people wasn't fired because they didn't take a shot. People weren't fined because they didn't buy an insurance policy that, so we found out, is riddled with fraudulent scams and money laundering fronts from Obamacare. So what was the dictatorship going on? Trump has brought order in, but they will not acknowledge and give that man credit for anything. So he's done some things. He's made some tough decisions that were related to things that were being out of order. So you know what he's done? He has bypassed Congress sometimes. He's made sure that people got funded. He vowed to sign an order paying 240,000 DHS employees, bypassing Democrat obstruction that left essential border protectors unpaid for over a month in that shutdown that we went through. He was prioritizing American safety. So that 76th day, the longest government shutdown in the history of the nation, the partial government shutdown, it ended. Now, he signed a bill on April 30th, 2026, to fund most of the department. The House approved the Senate-passed measure funding agencies like the TSA and Coast Guard, though some immigration enforcement funding like ICE remain unresolved. The shutdown, which began in February of this year, 2026, ended following House approval on April 30th. Now, The bill funds most of the Department of Homeland Security, including the TSA, Coast Guard, FEMA, and Secret Service through the end of September. What's not covered? Listen to what's not covered. This is important. This is very important. Key immigration enforcement arms, including Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and parts of Customs and Border Protection, CBP, Customs and Border Protection. The Democrats don't care about that. They don't give a rip about our national security. Stick with me. They were excluded from this funding package. It was excluded, with battles over those agencies set to continue. Oh, yeah. Now, what was the reason? The stalemate was broken after. Why were we able to move on in the way that we were? It was a stalemate, but it was broken after 76 days following pressure over expired emergency funding for workers. Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries were blamed for prolonging the shutdown over immigration enforcement opposition. The shutdown was triggered by Democrat Party demands. Democrats in Congress demanded changes to immigration enforcement funding, echoing past standoffs like the 2019 shutdown. Now, incidents such as killings by federal agents in Minnesota fueled their push for reforms, leaving over 240,000 DHS employees without paychecks. That's a lot of Americans. And they wanted to say, see what Trump has done? Let's look at the whole picture. See what they say on the news. Look, President Trump is responsible for DHS, the unemployment rate going up because we have 240,000 DHS employees who are not receiving paychecks, and we have the suffering of Americans. They won't tell you the whole story. It was a partisan blockade, prioritizing policy shifts over frontline workers securing American borders and airports. Guys, that they don't care about our safety. The White House had issued a presidential memorandum directing DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen and the Office of Management and Budget Director to pay TSA's roughly 60,000 employees using repurposed funds from prior appropriations like the One Big Beautiful Bill. President Trump has been saying, guys, we got to pay these people. Democrats didn't care. You still have that facets of it that's not funded. That has to do with our national security. Trump had signed the order amid widespread airport delays from agents calling out sick or quitting. Payments restored, some order highlighting executive authority against congressional gridlock, the executive branch of the government. The White House, our president. Over 240,000 workers, including Border Patrol and security personnel, were awaiting relief after missing pay for essential duties. Trump's commitment to public servants was steadfast, while Democrats left everything in limbo. Why? They don't care. It's a part of their history. They leave things in limbo. Not only was the impact upon workers profound, but there was an impact on our national security, guys. I talk about national security a lot. A lot of people are oblivious to it. All they can think about is my check and my this, and I want to keep getting $4,000 for food stamps, and I don't have to do anything to be able to get it. Not looking at the bigger picture of the nation. We're not paying for you to get $4,000 a month in food stamps unless you go somewhere and volunteer 15 hours a week. Bill Clinton did it under the Welfare to Work program. I digress a little bit, but it all fits in here. He did it, and who stopped it? Barack Hussein Obama. Who started it again? Donald John Trump. There needs to be an informing of our citizenry. Citizens, guys, we got to understand the dynamics. We're surrounded by people who don't have a clue, and they're wrapped up in emotionalism. So, all of this ties in together. Our nation, how it operates, the funding, the people being upset. And then you think President Trump is a problem. Guys, he's trying to solve problems. There needs to be a pressuring against Democrats ahead of the midterms, and I'm going to stick it hard on informing why we need to pressure them. I'm going to stick it hard. I'm going to be talking about and dissecting these things because I just find out people don't understand. I've just been, it tripped me out to hear Black Americans saying, President Trump is taking us back to segregation and Jim Crow, and black people can't even vote anymore based on what the Supreme Court did. Lord have mercy. Couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. We've got to press, and the Democrat Party, they're pushing that lie. Black pastors from pulpits are pushing that lie. Guys, we got to pressure these people with their diabolical lying and divisive tactics. There needs to be a pressuring against Democrats ahead of the midterms in so many ways, every angle, every facet. And the economic shifts draw from other priorities. All this has to do with the economy and all these dynamics about national security. We have to safeguard aviation and border enforcement. That's key to our national security. Political optics favor Trump, framing Democrats as favoring criminal, illegal aliens over patriots, over we the people, aligning with America First principles against globalist overreach. The crisis exposed government overreach risk when partisanship endangered constitutional duties to secure the nation. The Democrats did not care about our national security, which is the comprehensive protection of a nation's citizens. They are responsible to protect us as citizens, protect our economy and institutions, encompassing defense, intelligence, and foreign relations. And Marco Rubio is doing a stellar job at that. He and Donald Trump and all of the cabinet. But the Democrats want to paint a different picture, guys. They're liars. They've been lying to us. They've been gaslighting us. They don't want to give him credit for what he's done in keeping us safe and the border, not having anybody coming in illegally all these many months. It addresses threats like, when we're keyed into all these things, it addresses threats like terrorism, espionage, cyber attacks, and foreign adversaries. Key branches include defense, intelligence, diplomacy, and homeland security. It should always be void of political power plays, but the Democrats don't think so. They want to get right in the middle of a power play with all these things, with our national security and us being on the line. All of these dynamics involve weighing a lot of factors and details regarding what is the right thing to do as a leader. This involves making tough decisions, guys. President Trump was signing an executive order to provide money so workers could get paid. He wanted them paid, but they'll paint a different picture on the news. So that's going to take us into our clinical perspective. We're going to take a glance at why there are certain details that become very important as it relates to making tough decisions. Making tough decisions as a leader requires owning the outcome, acting with transparency, and aligning choices with core values, even under pressure. And you know what I like about Trump? He gets on Truth Social. He'll get in front of the camera and he starts talking about these things. And he's just off the cut. He just flows out. Sometimes he's off script. He just talks on and on. He'll address these things. Effective leaders gather diverse input, evaluate long-term consequences over short-term gains, and communicate their rationale clearly to build trust rather than waiting for perfect information. There are key strategies for tough decisions. Listen, what would happen if we identify what really matters by focusing our personal moral compass, core values, and organizational goals? What are our organizational goals as a country, as far as our safety, as far as we the people are concerned? When tough decisions have to be made, leaders gather data and input. They collect relevant facts, workforce analytics, and diverse perspectives from stakeholders to avoid relying solely on intuition. Now, there's something called, this really got my attention when I was just thinking this through. I heard about this really got my attention, and I love it. It's called the 5-5-5 rule. Using the 5-5-5 rule can be helpful. It evaluates if the decision will matter in 5 minutes, 5 months, or 5 years to reduce panic and focus on long-term effect and long-term impact. I love that. It's a way of thinking. It frames things. It gives us direction. It gives organization on a pathway. When making tough decisions, it will be necessary to embrace transparency. When difficult, high-stakes decisions like layoffs or strategic shifts are made, communicating openly about the why to maintain trust and credibility becomes very important. Why are we doing this? Why is it necessary? This involves owning the outcome. If a decision leads to failure, take responsibility, involve the team in the recovery, and learn from it rather than becoming paralyzed. Powerful stuff. I've had to walk this out in leadership positions. It's important to not fear imperfection. Take action. Even with imperfect information, doing nothing is often worse than a wrong decision that can be corrected. Guys, what have we looked at tonight? Overcoming obstacles. And our clinical perspective is about tough decisions. Guys, the Democrat Party has been an enemy to our national security, and it's easy to prove. Just by virtue of the fact that they were willfully bringing in 10,000 illegals a day, brought them in here. That's ruthless at its core. I remember they were just showing these able-bodied men, close haircuts. They were all different kinds of ethnicities. We didn't know who they were, but they were just brought in willfully. President Trump disrupted their agenda. Their gravy train is over. He stopped the fraudulent scams and money laundering fronts. That was their gravy train. It's been stopped to the tune of billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. And it's so important that we never get out of control again. Guys, if they get elected in November and in 2028, we're in trouble. We're in trouble, and we need to tell people about it. We need to be vocal, and people say, vote blue, vote blue. No, no, no. Don't vote blue. And we need to inform them why, educate them. And that's what I do. I'm in this community. I want to provoke thought, bring awareness, and us look towards what we need to do as a nation to unite, to make the best decisions for us to flow together as one, forming a more perfect union. And that's what we're going to keep on doing. We're going to talk about these things. We're going to dissect these things. Why? because it's important. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Guys, we were all over the place. We were all over the place in our school systems. That's been shut down. These curriculums that they were perpetrating upon our children was off the charts. It was diabolical what they were doing, teaching them how to pleasure their bodies and telling them part of the curriculum was saying there was no such thing as doing it too much in one day. Part of the curriculum for what they were doing with middle schoolers, telling them what to do with their fists in terms of other people's bodies. Having illegal immigrants just cross our border unchecked. We didn't know who they were. Some were, they were coming out of prison. They were coming out of institutions. They just, all this kind of chaos was going on. President Trump stopped it. He intervened in Venezuela. And you know what else he did when he intervened in Venezuela? People say, well, he shouldn't have been over there. The Venezuelans were saying, please help us. And then after he got Maduro over here, and they're going to deal with that, and he'll deal with him fairly, then he had them to release 800 pastors. Why were they being kept in captive over there? Did Biden try to get them released? Guys, that's the kind of thing that was been going on. But President Trump said, stop it. And now they got Cuba. Cuba said, help us. They want order. You know why? They want capitalism. Communism is why they got to where they were. Venezuela, look at the track record that they had financially with what was going on there. They turned into a socialist cesspool, and it just caved in. And we have people that want to do the same thing for this nation. That's the agenda of the cabal. They don't want us to be capitalists. They don't want capitalism to rule. And guys, we got the Trump accounts that are driven. They're going to put our children, our posterity in a position and bless families. It is a prosperity-driven agenda. And it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That's how I've heard it coined. And that's all about capitalism. That's all about being a blessing to the nation and to our children. That's never been done before, the Trump accounts. And so I'm so excited about that as we move into July and as we move into the summer. And if newborns are born and they can have access to that, and any of our children that are under the age of 18, and I'm going to challenge people. I'm going to challenge you men. Are you all talking about those things? Are you encouraging the men in your church to be able to access that information? If you are not, why not? Why not? Are you that controlled? Are you that much of a puppet? Are you that much of a coward that you will not inform men so they can make their own decisions? Guys, we got to call a spade a spade. There's a lot going on in this country, and over here we're going to dissect these things because we are going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there. It is not acceptable to me that over the 40% of our fourth graders don't even have a proficient reading level, and 80 to 85% of black boys in America do not have a reading efficiency grade level past the fourth grade. They're capable. So what's going on that they can't read past the fourth grade? They're supposed to show up at school already reading, and it's so doable. It's so doable. So what would happen if we talked about these things and set up a network where we can orchestrate that happening? It's not hard to do. Are there politicians talking about that? Are they? You can talk about America being first and MAGA and all this, yeah, but I'm going to tell you what's been missing. The family. Somebody going to the core of what's going on with we the people, with the family. Actually, the home. Actually, dealing with the soul, the mind, the will, our emotions, our intellect, our drive, and our desires. Nobody's dealing with that. They're just kind of peripheral, the economy and government and policies, all that's important, but we've forgotten about the soul of America. The soul of America. And if we used to do that, there were united efforts, and we need to get back to it. We're so distracted. Music, videos, all this, all that, all these agendas going on from religious perspectives, forgotten all about the people and how churches can be havens of wellness, too distracted about just money. It takes money, but there are other dynamics, setting up, availing the space for certain things that could happen there that would change the soul of America. It's not hard to do. So I'm going to keep talking about those things because I know what can happen if we pull our minds and our efforts and our structure together just to make it happen. It's not hard. It's not hard. It just requires structure, and it requires consistency. And I'm older. I'm older. I'm an elder now. And so there's certain things that are just pressing on me, and they're pressing hard, and I'm going all the way with it. What have I got to lose? What have I got to lose by going all the way in? Because our posterity is worth it, and we are worth it because we're going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there as we continue to go from destruction to dignity, clinical perspectives, spiritual truths, strategies, skills, tools, a way of thinking, a way of ordering, getting out of that chaos, doing something different, empowering our children, empowering our churches, forgetting about this religious flow, but getting into an empowerment where we really look at the core of those people that gather on Sunday mornings. One of the most exclusive groups of people on Sunday mornings are gathered in churches, and there are components that are not even addressed, but that's all subject to change. Guys, I will see you next week. I'm going all the way in on some things because I know what I'm talking about, and I'm not afraid to do it, and I'm not afraid to speak up because there's a lot on the line. And somebody's got to step forward and go, hey, have you thought about this? Well, not really. Well, let's talk about it. And let's look and see how we're going to execute it and structure it and move forward. I will see you guys next week. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are one power, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.